G'day guys, welcome back to Reach Me or Teach Me. I've done a couple of cricket videos already. I'm an absolute cricket tragic. I know I've got some baseball fans on the channel, and I thought, look, cricket explained for baseball fans. It is by an American for Americans. So I thought this might be a good one for anyone who's interested in the game of cricket and learning about it, but also might be a little bit of fun for me to see just how accurate it is and how bang on it is, and whether he does a really good job explaining it or whether there's extra things I might be able to add to it. So let's go.
Cricket explained if you already know baseball.
All right, to get this started, I want you to imagine a game much like baseball, except there are only two bases, and they're basically where home plate is and where the pitcher's mound is. To score a run in this game, you simply have to reach the next base. So if you put the ball in play and you make it to the pitcher's mound, that's a run. And then if you're able to make it back to home plate, then you score 2 runs on that play. This game is played in the middle of an oval, so there's no foul area. You can hit the ball behind you, you can hit it to the side or whatever. And in this game, the pitchers are allowed to bounce the ball. If you can picture this game in your mind, you are 75% of the way to understanding cricket. The rest of it is details.
50% anyway. It's one of those games where, again, if you've picked up on my channel, I love little nuances. I love those little games within games. Cricket is full of that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see just how much he gets into that.
Before we get started, I just want to say that I'm going to be explaining this like I would to a friend of mine who knows baseball and wants to know about cricket. I'm probably going to be switching between baseball and cricket terminology a little bit more freely than maybe somebody who's a hardcore cricket fan might be comfortable with. Feel free to correct me in the comments, but what might be more fun is if you made a companion video that explains baseball in reverse. All right, let's get started.
Basic gameplay.
So cricket is a game played between two teams of 11 players. When a team is fielding, all 11 of its players are on the field at the same time. 9 players are out in the field at the various positions, and then there's one bowler, who is basically the pitcher, and one wicketkeeper, who is basically the...
So, point one that he's got there, 9 players, and there's 11 on the field, 1 bowler, 1 wicketkeeper, which is the catcher, bowler is the pitcher. And it says they're various positions, not as specific as baseball, and it's quite correct. So we have a lot of different positions in cricket as far as fielding places are concerned, and essentially it will change depending on who's bowling, who's batting, what their strengths and weaknesses are from both the bowler and the batsman, and they'll basically set up a plan. They'll know that a batsman's particularly strong in one area, so they'll make sure they'll cover that gap. And because it's an entire circular field they've got to try and protect, there's a lot more scope for batters to get creative and move around the crease and just hit the ball into a different zone to try and get runs. So there's a bit of strategy, quite a lot of strategy involved with the fielding placements.
Catcher. And then the team that is batting has 2 players at bat at any given time. These batters stand at opposite ends of the pitch, which is a narrow rectangle that's in the middle of the oval that is the cricket field. At the ends of the pitch are 2 wickets, which are these little structures that have 3 stumps and 2 bails. The stumps are the 3 pieces of wood that are in the ground, and the bails are these 2 little pieces of wood that rest on top of the stumps. A play begins when the bowler, which is basically the pitcher, bowls the ball to the batter. The bowler is ultimately trying to break the wicket, which would get the batter out, and
that was a seed.
Is ultimately trying to break the wicket, which would get the batter out, and more on that later. The batter is trying to protect the wicket and put the ball in play. If the ball is put in play and the batter and the teammate are able to switch places, so basically assume the other one's position, the team has scored a run. And if they can do that again, then they score 2, and if they can do that again, they score 3. It's
probably important to note that in cricket, you don't have to run when you hit the ball. It's not like baseball, where if you hit the ball into fair play, you have to run. So in cricket, you could hit the ball it might go straight to a fielder, and you just say no, and you just stay where you are. So that's a really pivotal aspect between the two games.
Etc. There are no strikes in cricket. The batter can just choose not to swing if they don't want to. And there's no penalty for hitting a batter with a legally thrown ball. Batters are expected to protect the wicket and not let themselves get hit. In fact, as we'll see in a little bit, there are actually situations where a batter can be called out if they allow themselves to be hit with the ball. There is the equivalent of a ball in cricket. It's called a wide. And
that's a very famous delivery, that one. That was the first ball of what is the biggest series in cricket. It's a 5-test match series between Australia and England called the Ashes, and that was the first ball of that series, and there was a huge amount of pressure and big build up to the series, and it set the tone because the Australians then came out and just wiped the floor with the English after that ball.
if the umpire has determined that the bowler has bowled the ball wide, 1 run is awarded to the batting team.
So what they mean by wide is if it's not within the batsman's reach playing a traditional cricket shot. So again, the batsmen are allowed to move around the crease. They're allowed to move side to side and even forward and back if they want. But from standing in a set traditional position in front of the wickets, if a normal cricket shot cannot be played to hit the ball, that would be deemed a wide. It's a little bit different. It changes from game to game depending on whether it's a short form game or a long form game. There's tighter margins, but yeah.
There's also something in cricket called a no ball, which is when the umpire has determined that the ball has been delivered illegally. And there's a couple dozen different reasons why an umpire might call a no ball. If the umpire calls a no ball, just like a wide, 1 run is awarded to the batting team. In cricket, the batters...
A slight addition to that, if a no ball is bowled in the short forms of the games, the one-day game or the T20 game, the batsmen get an extra free run. The ball has to be rebowled, and then that ball that gets rebowled is actually what they call a free hit. So the batsman cannot be out except for run out. They can't be caught, they can't be bowled out, any other mode of dismissal basically except for run out. So it gives them a free hit to just basically try and absolutely blast the ball, not having to worry about being caught out anywhere.
Stay on the field until they are out. So they continue in cricket, just like a wide, 1 run is awarded to the batting team. In cricket, the batters stay on the field until they are out. So they continue to bat and score runs until they are put out. This means that, just like in baseball, a batter can be out with 1 single swing of the bat, or they can stay at bat, I guess forever. But it's common for a batter to score between like 20 and 50 runs in an at-bat, and it's not unheard of for a batter to hit 100.
So, put a bit of perspective on that. Generally speaking, like an acceptable batting average in baseball would have a 3 in front of it, maybe a high 2s, right? In cricket, our batting average... For a batter, they probably realistically should average 40 plus, and the best batsman in the world will average either high 40s to low 50s. The greatest of all greats of all time, Sir Donald Bradman, averaged 99.96. It says a lot. The nearest closest to him is about 60. But yeah, so to go out and to go out and bat, you don't get out. You're allowed to stay as long as you'd like. Try and score as many runs as you can. And you say a good batter will score about 40 to 50 on average, and the bowlers who aren't specialist batsmen, they will average anywhere from 5 to 35 if they're quite handy.
It's called a century, and it's very fun.
So, and essentially, you've got 11 batsmen. That's 10 wickets because you have to bat in pairs. So the last person's left stranded, if you'd like. 10 wickets, an average score in a 50 over games, probably around about 300 in round numbers. So essentially 300 divided by the 10 wickets is about 30. In a longer game where there's no pressure to score quickly, you can take your time. The scores, a good score is probably more like about 450 to 500. Great score would be 550 plus, and an average score is probably around about 350 in Test match cricket.
The boundary.
Along the perimeter of the cricket field is the boundary. This can be a rope or a little cushion type thing, or it could be a short fence or a wall. When a ball is put in play and it reaches or goes past the boundary, that is called a boundary. A ball that rolls and hits or passes the boundary or bounces over the boundary like a ground rule double is worth 4 runs for the batting team.
Ground rule double, good comparison.
A ball that is hit over the boundary, so basically like a home run, is worth 6 runs for the batting team.
Outs.
There are several ways that a batter or runner can get put out in cricket, and they boil down to 2 basic categories. A batter can be caught out, which is just like baseball. They hit a ball in the air and a fielder catches it. Or they can be out if the fielding team knocks the bails off the stumps of the wicket when you are in a position where that could put you out.
Nice run out.
There's a few different ways this could happen. You could be run out. This is where you are trying to score a run, but they knock the ball into the wicket before you reach the crease that defines the place where you are safe. By the way,
So that's just what he's saying there. The crease, either the bat while you're holding it, it becomes an extension of your body. So as long as you're holding the bat, technically this is where he's got to get, and he's got to get to this line here before the ball hits the wickets. Okay.
the bat is part.
Yeah, there you go. The bat is part of the body as long as you're holding it. So in the end, the ball's hit the wickets, and he's probably about a foot, maybe 1.5 feet short
Of your body when determining whether or not you are safe. You can be bowled out, and these are very exciting. This is where the bowler sends the ball to you, and the ball bounces past you and knocks the bails off the stumps. A batter can also be put out by the wicketkeeper if the batter moves past this line here called the popping crease, and the wicketkeeper gains possession of the ball and knocks the bails off the stumps. This is called being stumped.
So you're essentially run out by the wicketkeeper. So you don't actually take off for a run, but you're out of your ground. And yeah, that's essentially a run out by the wicketkeeper. It's called stumped.
Out. A batter can also be called out if they allow the ball to hit them, and the umpire determines that the ball would have knocked the bails off the stumps if the batter had not interfered with their body.
So batsmen never really do that intentionally, but that rule is there essentially so that you can't just stand in front of the wickets and not get bowled out. So you have to try and play a shot. You can't just stand there and use your legs and the pads on your legs to just block the wickets.
This is called a leg before wicket. So those are the most common ways that you will see a batter or runner get.
There's actually 10 different modes of dismissal, but those are definitely the other ones you very rarely see.
Put out by the fielding team. There are several other much less common ways for a batter to get out, and we will not be getting into them here. One major difference between baseball and cricket is in cricket, if the fielding team thinks that they have gotten a batter or runner out, they first have to appeal to the umpire, who will confirm whether or not the batter or runner is out. So if a batter or runner would be out, but no one on the fielding team notices it, then play just continues, and the umpire will not just call them out. When a player is put out, the bowling and fielding team is said to have taken the wicket, and the batting and running team is said to have lost the wicket.
Overs.
Each series of 6 pitches, or deliveries, which are called balls, is called an over. Each over has only one bowler, and each bowler only bowls one over at a time. So after a bowler has delivered 6 balls, they take a position in the field, and another player comes in to be the bowler for the next over. A bowler can field for an over and then come back to bowl again, but a bowler may not bowl 2 consecutive overs. If you're comparing this all to baseball, overs are similar to individual at-bats in terms of the flow of the game, right? It's like one series of deliveries that everyone's watching, and then there's a brief pause while a new player comes on, and then there's a next set of deliveries that everyone's watching.
It's a crazy concept to baseball fans, but if you imagine that you have a pitcher there that's given a designated number of pitches to get that batter out, make it 5, 6, 10, whatever it is, just say you've got 6 pitches to do something, right? And then you're swapping over for the next guy, and then you can come back in again if he has it. So it's a strange concept, but it's because it's played at two ends. So basically, you bowl and bat from both ends. So one bowler will come from one end of the pitch, and then they'll go off and field after their over's complete, and then the other end will bowl. So also, it's a much, again, traditionally cricket is a much longer game than baseball, and you're out there for the full day in the sun for 5 consecutive days. So it's just impossible to have somebody go back to back to back to back to back, and without just destroying their body. So I'm sure there's part of that in it too.
The difference, of course, is that it's the bowlers, the pitchers that are coming in and out, and not the batters.
Formats.
Beyond everything that has been explained so far, the majority of the details of the game that you watch will depend on the format of cricket that you're watching. There are 2 basic formats of the game of cricket. There's first class cricket and there's limited overs cricket. First class cricket is what a lot of people think of when they think of cricket. We're talking about the games that go on for several days. Everyone is wearing white. Maybe the Queen shows up. And first class cricket is most associated with the 5-day-long test matches that international teams play against one another. They're scheduled for 5 days, but they might be completed before that. At the beginning of the first day, there is a coin toss to determine which team goes first, and then the sides alternate going through their entire batting order. This happens twice.
Just to interrupt there, I think the key difference between the various formats of cricket, in Test match cricket, it's a game of attrition. It's a game of attrition. It's a long distance run, not a sprint. But the key with Test match cricket is it's really the bowlers and the fielding side that's attacking, and the batsmen are essentially trying to survive. In the other formats, for various reasons, they use a different ball. Generally the pitch is completely different, has no life in it for the bowlers, because it's designed to be a spectator sport. That it's designed to be action-packed and exciting. So they want to see lots of runs and big hits and all the rest of it. So the short form games are tailored and altered to suit the batsman, and it's made it a very different game. So Test match cricket is a fielder and bowler driven game, much more strategy, and again, it's a case of working out the batter that you're up against, whereas the short form games are just about scoring as many runs as you can as quickly as possible. So it's much more bat dominant. Very, very much so. There's different sets of rules, like I said, different balls. Oh, by the way, so this is an actual cricket ball. It's an old one that we use in the nets, which are our batting cages. This one you can see is a 4-piece ball. So this is like, if you saw my other cricket video, I was talking about the stitchings and the seams. It's all hand stitched and everything like that, but it's 4 different pieces of leather. And the way these things are, they maintain their shape. You'll notice that that's very round, even though it's a very old, tired, beaten up ball. It's still quite round. You'll also notice the seam and how pronounced the seam is, even though it's an old ball. Like if I put I hope I haven't put that behind the camera, but you can actually see that it's raised up by probably a millimetre. Whereas if I get a 2-piece ball, and this is fairly newish, you can see that's quite shiny and new. Look at the difference in the shape and the roundness of it. So this one's already starting to lose its shape, starting to go quite oval, whereas this is still very much a round ball. Anyhow, my bad.
Twice. So each team goes through its batting order twice for a total of 4 innings. Unless the team that goes second scores more runs than the team that went first, in which case they don't have to actually finish their entire innings. They just win the game. That was very simplified. The rules governing test matches could be their own 15-minute video. The other format of cricket is limited overs cricket, where each team is limited to a certain number of overs, and each innings comes to an end when the specified number of overs has been reached, or when all of the batters are out, whichever comes first. There are several types of limited overs cricket, but there are 2 that you are most likely to see. The first of these are the one-day internationals, or ODI. These are played between national teams, and each team has 50 overs, And then there's also T20 cricket, which is 2020 cricket, where both teams get only 20 overs. This style of cricket was invented to be more exciting and more fast-paced, and to put the length of an individual match around the same as other common sporting events around the world. An easy way to know whether you're watching a test match or a limited overs match is whether the teams are wearing white or colors. Yep. And if you are watching a professional match, you're almost definitely watching a T20 match.
Scorekeeping.
All right, pay attention, because this is maybe the most confusing part of all of this, the scorekeeping. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it says India, and then it says 118 for 5. This does not mean that the score is 118 runs to 5 runs. No, this means that India has scored 118 runs for 5 wickets, which means that 5 of their batters have been put out. Then it says first innings, so this is the first innings of this match. Then it says England 287. So that's how many runs England scored in their innings. And since this is a test match, both teams will play 2 innings. Then you've got information about the 2 batsmen that are currently up and how many runs they've scored so far. Then at the end, it says Broad 0 for 24. This means that Broad, the bowler, has taken 0 wickets so far and has allowed 24 runs. And then the 15 o'clock over there, that's just the time of the day. It's 3 p.m. Now, for a limited overs match, there's a little bit more information that you need to know. So here you go. Down at the bottom, it says England. This is another game between England and India. It's a women's game. So it says England 103 for 4. So that means that they've scored 103 runs for 4 wickets. P2, don't worry about what that means yet. Then it says 24.3 of 50. That means that we are 24 overs and 3 deliveries into this innings.
Well done.
And then the 50 means that this innings will have at most 50 overs, right? Because this is a one-day international. Then it says target 222. This means that India went first and scored 222 runs. So that's how many runs England has to score to win. And from there, it's pretty much the same as the test match we
Very, 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 very close. The target is 222 because India scored 221.
just saw. Just be careful, because if you're watching an Australian broadcast, the scores are reversed.
I've never understood this. I don't understand why we do this here. For some reason, we put the wickets in front of the runs. Anyway.
Wickets are first and the runs are second. So on this one it says Ren, that's the Renegades, that's one of the teams, 5 for 135. So it's 5 wickets for 135 runs. So just be careful, it might be confusing.
Some final similarities and differences.
All right, that's basically it. I thought that we would end this video with a few more similarities and differences between baseball and cricket. One major difference is that in cricket, if a ball is in play, the runners are not compelled to move, right? You only run if you think you can make a run. One similarity is that every cricket ground has different dimensions and a different shape. And much like in baseball, this means that certain cricket grounds are more favorable or less favorable to different play styles. Another difference is that in cricket, the positions referred to...
There you go. So I was talking about the positions before, and I said to you we have many positions. And that gives you a bit of an idea. So, this all may seem incredibly complicated, and what the hell is all of this? This is what I'm trying to understand with the NFL and things like that, and the NHL and baseball stuff that I'm watching. It's I thought this would be a really good way for you guys to essentially live in my shoes for a minute. And look, all of this is nothing to me. I've grown up with this, so I know exactly. You can ask me where any of these fielding positions is, and without having to look at this diagram, I can tell you exactly where that field is supposed to be. Whereas yesterday, I was watching an NFL basics of NFL coverage video, and I was sitting there going, "Oh my god!" And yeah, I imagine this is how you Americans feel when you see cricket. So yeah, it's not as like all of those sports. It's not as complicated as it seems. It's just that there's a lot of little bits and pieces that that do all add up to make it a very interesting sport.
Places on the field and not necessarily the individual fielders. So if baseball had a similar thing, like you would not be the shortstop for your team. You would just be a fielder who would be playing shortstop position. And then if your team was in a shift or whatever, maybe you would be said that you were in the second base position. Or maybe for one batter, you would be in the...
Boom! Okay, so this is exactly what I'm talking about. Where, and again, in cricket, you do this. They quite often have. I remember how there was 9 fielders plus the bowler and the wicketkeeper. They'll have what they call a 7-2 field, which means they've only actually got 2 fielders on one entire side of the field because a batsman is so strong in one area, or the plan is bowl it out there so he can only hit it on that side of the pitch. And so you stack all your fielders over on that side of it. And then it requires great skill to be able to put the ball in the right spot every time. But yeah, this kind of fielding arrangement is common in cricket.
The shallow mid outfield position, right? Another similarity is that in cricket, players' on-field and off-the-field behavior is governed by an old-fashioned sense of propriety that's not unlike the unwritten rules in baseball. And the final difference that's probably become clear to you as you watch this video is that cricket is a much more international game than baseball. I don't mean to say that it is more popular in more countries than baseball, although this might also be true. What I mean by this is that international competitions, so competitions between national teams.
Cricket is the second most played sport in the world, only behind soccer. So that just gives you a little bit of perspective of how big cricket is and how popular cricket is. It's just not that big in the States or Canada or any, but it basically everywhere else in the world, especially in the subcontinent, India and Pakistan, Bangladesh, those countries, cricket is a religion. It is just crazy how nuts they are for it. But yeah, the second most played sport in the world.
Are the norm. They're not like a special thing that everyone tunes into every 4 years. Professional cricket is a relatively new phenomenon in the world, and while leagues are becoming much more popular these days, it wasn't very long ago that professional cricket was looked upon as diluting the purity of the game. All right.
Just the terminology professional cricket there, it sounds like the international players are amateur players. No, they all get paid, and they get paid very well to represent their country. What he's talking about there is domestic leagues that might be the Indian Premier League, for example, and they will recruit for that league, for the duration of that league. They'll recruit some international players when they're not playing international cricket. When they've got a gap in their schedule, they'll go and they'll play in these domestic tournaments, and they get paid massive money to come and play in these tournaments. So I guess that's more so just the professional side of things. He's saying professional. It just sounds like you don't get paid to play for your country, but you definitely do. You get paid very well. The best cricketers in the world get paid very well. Nothing like you guys pay your athletes. It staggers me, the contracts that I hear and things like the basketball, and you just think, Jesus Christ, how much money do you throw at this thing?
Baseball fan, you have just become a cricket master, and you are ready to watch any cricket game that comes across your television. If you are a cricket fan and you notice that I got something wrong, which I probably have, or that I left something out, which I probably did, feel free to let me know in the comments. Although, like I said before, it might be more fun for you to just make your own companion video. I would love to watch a video where an actual lifelong cricket fan tries to explain cricket for baseball fans, or tries to explain baseball for cricket fans.
Challenge accepted, I think, sir, but that's going to take me a while. I still need to understand the sports more before I can try and start doing a companion video for that. But I think he did a fantastic job. There's a lot of nuances and subtle details that he couldn't really cover because, like he said multiple times, each of those facets could probably have a 15-minute video of its own. But cricket is an amazing sport, guys. If you want to get started on the game, start watching the 2020 version. watch leagues like the IPL or the Big Bash League, the Australian version, the BBL. Those are the most exciting. It's it's tough because the traditional form of cricket is still the best. That's what the best type of cricket actually is. But and 2020 cricket can often be seen as like a watered down version of it. A little bit. It's a little bit like the All Star weekend in basketball. It's all good and well having all the lights and all the stars, but they're not really playing their heart out because they're not playing for their country. And that's hard to say. There's some players who really do play their heart out for these franchises, but it's just a different thing. But great, it's a great excitement and a really good intro to cricket is watch those T20 leagues. So anyway, I'm sure you haven't stuck through all of my waffling, and I'm probably talking to myself right about now. But if you haven't already done so, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.